Designated Survivor Season 2, Episode 3, Outbreak. Now this episode kind of had three stories rolled into one. Of course, we have our main story, which was the big viral outbreak for this episode. Our secondary story, which is our kind of big thread going throughout the series, which is always, Wells' story and whatever she's investigating or solving or whatever new mystery has popped up for her. And then the third story for this episode is actually revolving around one of our newer characters, the newest of characters actually, in the lawyer, whose name, of course, I don't remember, and her dealing with the possible relocation of an Old South statue. And I thought that was pretty cool. I like the way they kind of handled the stories. I don't think anything was too overdone or, was in the episode for too long. I think everything kind of hit his beat just as it needed to, and then kind of in the middle there was sort of a fourth story, but not really, and that was with our other new character, Lloyd, dealing with the fact that he hated Kirkman was given his own little creature, and it was just a tiny frog, and he thought it was like the stupidest thing in the universe. Like, the president can't be given, can't have his name attached to a new species that's so minuscule and useless. And it was so funny because he's such a just weird character. Like, it just, the way they do him, he just pisses people off and he's just rude about stuff. And just like the lawyer used him in this episode where she's like, hey, need your help. And it's like, easy way to do it, have everybody hate one thing so that way we can kind of work towards a solution. And he comes in and it's just like, everyone here is profiting, from racism. And yeah, that's just the fact of life, and everybody hates him and stuff, and then it kind of helps her solve her problem. So, he had like his little story doing his normal thing, but I think all the stories were actually really entertaining. The story of the warrior, I thought it was pretty cool that she actually got such a big focus. This is like the episode after she's really introduced, and then they have like one of the main stories is actually focusing on her. So I thought it was actually cool the way they handled that. Of course, it's a modern issue with monuments in the South where these are people who are slave owners and things like that. So of course it's a current hot button issue. Like, if it's a political show, it has to touch on actual real world issues. So this is like the first one for this season, at least. I think last season they did like gun control, which is a huge thing, especially right now. But it was like the hot button issue for this time. And then of course we had the viral outbreak, which I thought was really well done, and it was just very interesting watching that because they were talking about like this could be like the be all end all sort of deal. And that led to some really good moments for the episode where they're dealing with this virus and they don't exactly know what to do. There are no vaccines, there's no just, poof, there's a cure. But they come up with an experimental idea from this guy who owns a company. It's like, hey, we could use your help. If you would give us the dosage, that'll basically be great. And he was worried about, basically the political fallout for his company and, of course, the monetary fallout. And it's like, well, if this goes wrong, people die, then, hey, this is just a disaster. And Kirkman basically talks to him. He does, the good president sort of thing where he gives him the speech like, the country needs you and this is bad right now. And it's like, okay, sure, I'll help out. And it seemed like everything was going fine. And then he just kind of reneged on the deal. He just switched it up, and it was like, all right, well, Kirkman's super pissed now. And they had to force him to do it. And that's where, they kind of blend two of the storylines, because while she's dealing with this monument issue, they have to bring the lawyer over to be like the White House lawyer. And it was a great scene. Honestly, I loved it because she came in and it was like, all right, this is the issue that we have. That's not the issue. Like, the guy mentioned something. It's like, that's not the issue at hand. It's this, this, and this. And the judge was just like, that is right. You are wrong. Give out the drugs. And I was like, wow, she shut that down in like 2.5 seconds. And then she went back to her story. And I was like, that was actually a cool little scene. Because it was just like her doing her thing. And she just went in, done, got the heck out of there. So I like that portion. And of course, we finally get the scene of Kirkman actually going to the guy. We see who he was yelling at this whole time. And he was super pissed. It was like, you tricked us into thinking that you only had 10,000 and you're saving it for, the rich and stuff like that. And he's, kind of repeating himself, saying like, this is what you were supposed to do because of this. Like, you care all about money. And then of course they were trying to kind of, throw in kind of the race element because of the fact that the city that was basically suffering was mostly black people. So, they kind of used that against him. He's like, I'm not a racist, I'm just trying to, do my thing for my business, which technically he was, but race or not, he was definitely being a douchebag. But I also don't run like $1 billion business, but some people just care and some people don't. Especially with the way he did it, because he said he was going to do it. Like, it would be one thing if he did it and then they found out later that he lied. But he said he was going to do it and then he did nothing whatsoever. It was like, all right, there's one thing to lie about it. It's another thing to lie about it and say, yeah, I totally got you covered. And then just be like, nope. And people are just dying. They assume that they're going to be able to save more people. And then more and more people are just dying off. So, they handled that and they actually utilized the Reverend who was in this episode. And it's like, maybe we could, kind of use you a little bit. You had a lot to say, so maybe we, a little. I think he was like a last roar inside the lion, and they use him to kind of, mess with the guy, and he goes on his like, he doesn't, George Bush doesn't care about black people sort of thing. And so he just doesn't care. It's about minorities, and he's just letting people die off, but he cares about the rich. So it's super funny. It was like, you want to F with us, so we're gonna F with you back. And ultimately, it comes down to the guy agrees to, give out all the drugs, and then with everything that happened, Kirkman is the one to kind of show respect. Like, he's such a great guy to be doing this, and he realized his mistakes and stuff. And it's like, yeah, that's good leadership. And they even, they talk about that in that moment. So that was definitely a good storyline. I like the way it played out. Crazy moment towards the end when they have to test the drugs. And Kirkman's friend is like, I could tell she was sick. I was like, they're going to kill her off. And he was like, you don't look well. And she was like, it's not what you think. And I was like, okay, so she's just sick. And it was like, it's not what you think. It's kidney failure. I'm like, what? Like, that's a huge deal. Like, that's not a joke. And I was like, how in the world did that happen? So, of course, she decided to test the drug out on herself for toxicity and stuff. And I was just like, wow, that's nuts. Like, I thought for sure they were just killing her off, though. I was like, oh, she got sick and it wasn't working well enough. And, somehow, like, continue onward. But it was like, nope, tested on herself, got just kidney failure. And so Kirkman, kind of forces her to, come back to, well, I don't know. I don't think they were actually in the White House. It seemed like a very interesting looking hospital, so I doubt, I'm sure it has like something, but I don't think they were in like the actual White House. But I was like, this is like super high tech. It was like she was in almost a glass case. It was probably just a clear plastic, but it looked like she was actually in a glass case. And I was like, this is weird. Just seeing how fancy it looked, I was like, this is very odd. But yeah, he forces her to come back and he sends the goons, well, I shouldn't say goons, but he sends some people out to, get her back so that she can be healthy and she won't die trying to help other people, knowing that they have exactly what they need and anyone can, kind of dole out the dosages. So definitely an interesting little moment there, but ultimately everything worked out fine. They, dealt with the virus. The monument issue was ultimately dealt with and everything kind of worked out there. And then of course we have the other big storyline in this episode, which is Wells and Damien continuing on their mission, and it led to some interesting stuff. They end up going back through the house, and it's like, all right, so he made this odd path. He goes into this room. Wells opens up this drawer, and it's like, all right, so this random file has to do with the First Lady's father and him getting a heart transplant. Seems like it's nothing. It's like, what's the point of this? Why is there anything to lead us to this? Why does it matter in any way, shape, or form? So of course they're going through. They're picking up a little bit more information. Wells of course talks to the First Lady. And so she gets a little bit of information without, revealing too much. And it's like, okay, so it's this weird situation where her dad was definitely supposed to die, and then somehow he just jumped to the top of the list. He ends up with a heart transplant, and so he ends up living, for years and years. And it was like, all right, well, that leads to some interesting concepts there, and they find out a bit more information as they continue to follow this, this path of clues. They get to, Damien ultimately gets in trouble when they go to the records facility. And I was curious, once that happened, I was like, does that mean Lloyd is alive? Because I'm still curious who in the world set that up. Of course, who in the world killed the guy at the end of the episode. So this is kind of leading right back towards, I'm pretty sure Patrick Lloyd is still alive, because it's either that or, like I mentioned before, it could just be someone that is still on his side and was like, all right, if I go down, you need to be the one that, now takes over. So that could be it. It could technically be a new character, but it was just like, all right, somebody is clearly kind of going along this line. And it's super weird because they're going down this path, and it could be more, it might not actually be Patrick Lloyd. It might just be tied to whatever, for whatever reason, suddenly somebody needs to like tie up loose ends about a heart transplant, an illegal heart transplant that involves some illegal, backdoor deals from like the 1970s. I highly doubt that's the case, but there could be a story for that. Out of nowhere, decades later, somebody needs to cover their tracks. So that might be it, but I don't know, it's hard to tell like where things are going, because clearly Lloyd sent that out as a plan to be like, hey, you need to do this, and so of course it'll kind of mess with Kirkman joined as president, because then it's like, his mother-in-law is a criminal, and the way stupid things work with stupid people, where it's like, this person's a criminal, so this person's instantly bad, and just approval ratings, and it's weird how that works, but that's how people are. It's just like, one thing's bad, it's just horrible. It instantly ties to the president. So, how it's going to play out should be very interesting, but because of the stuff that happened with there being someone who got there before the two of them, with someone being in the house at the end of the episode when Wells was with her buddy, someone's ahead of them covering tracks for some reason. And it's just like, I don't understand. So maybe it was someone that was against Lloyd, but not for the president. They could just be in it for themselves, or someone who's working for someone that's in it for themselves, which, like I said, seems weird that it would come up 40, 50 years later. But I don't know. It's hard to tell. Like, with the way everything's playing out, it's just really hard to tell exactly what's going on here. Like, who is this person kind of covering their tracks? Why are they covering their tracks? Maybe it was someone that was working with Lloyd, and they knew that Lloyd was kind of like, it doesn't matter who else gets hurt as long as the president is taken down. And then they're like, crap, he did this to take down the president, but it'll hurt me as well. So that could totally be the case, and it would technically make sense in that regard. But it makes me curious. I don't know what to really expect there. I know they're going to have some confrontations. They have, the First Lady talking with her mom and stuff like that about, her, I'm assuming, having found out the truth is like, what the F? Like, what exactly, did you do? So I am looking forward to the next episode. I'm curious how things are going to play out. I don't know. I mean, apparently with whatever it is, I would have to assume it's huge, because after all this time, I'd be like, any sort of random little backdoor information, I would assume that the statute of limitations is up, like, after that much time. So it has to be like a monumental information, or it could just be the fact that it's that information in general, just like with Kirkman's son, when it was like, he might not actually be your son. Just the news in general will be that issue. So it might not be anything they can legally go after her for, but it'll still be that story that's tied to, the president, who is in a really odd place, as the, even 1 year in, people still don't really care for him too much. So I am curious where that's headed, but I think they did a great job leading up to it. Damien does end up coming back, because he was in the promo, but I like the way they kind of had this weird little thing going between Damien, and I wish I could think of Wells' partner's name, but he hated Damien, and I was like, I don't understand why he's mad at him either. And so when he leaves, and Wells is like, hey, are you coming? And he was like super excited. I was like, oh, like, I didn't get it the whole way through. I didn't get why he didn't why he didn't like him. I was like, I don't get it. Like, what's going on? And it was just because he was jealous. It was like, this is my buddy. Like, we were, in the last season, it was like, it was the two of us, it was a dynamic duo. And, the British dude comes in, and he, like, I'm just stuck in the seat now. So I thought it was funny, because I definitely didn't get it going through the episode. I was just like, yeah, he doesn't like him for some reason. And I couldn't tell if Damien didn't like him either, because they were both kind of nonchalant about it, but it seemed like it was kind of a thing from both sides. So I was like, I can't really tell. Like, did they know each other and they don't want to talk about it? And then it was totally just like, he just wanted to go out on the missions, because it was like, I kind of helped do all this stuff. I still wanted, he wanted to go from the seat to the mission. And I totally get that, just because, the excitement factor, I guess. But I thought it was funny, because I was like, I definitely don't get it. And then it was like, oh, there it is. He just wanted to be with his friend. So I thought that was kind of funny at the end, but definitely excited going into this next episode. Of course, we'd love to know what you guys thought about this one, so please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts about it, your least favorite parts about it. And I definitely want to know what you guys think is going to happen with the information involving, the First Lady's mom, and how that's going to play out for, all the characters involved. Of course, Kirkman's not going to, suddenly be replaced. Like, we know that that's not going to happen. Like, things will ultimately work out, but, the big question really is, who is covering their own tracks, and why are they doing it now? So we'd love to know your theories on that, and just how you think all that stuff is going to play out. And of course, like I said, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode in general, so please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.